right. Red light's on this time.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Melissa.
So, I watched your lesson,
Okay.
and let's reflect back on it, and how do you feel it went yesterday?
Well, my lesson with Noah, I think it went well. Surprisingly, my story wasn't too bad, I don't think. So, Noah was able to read the story, and he was able to tell me all of the meanings of the words that had the prefixes. So, overall, the lesson was successful because that's what I wanted him to be able to do.
What did he do to make you feel the lesson was successful? He did read the story, and what else did he do?
Yeah, so for example, like when it says, with a quick thrust to his abdomen, the meatloaf was dislodged from his throat. Well, he said he didn't really know what dislodged meant, but he said he recalled that dis means the opposite of being lodged. And he said he didn't even really know what lodged meant. He thinks it meant stuck in something, so he went back and checked and said that he used text clues too, that, where is it? I'm trying to think of it. Oh, he's choking, so with a quick thrust to his abdomen, it was dislodged, so if it was stuck, it came out. So opposite of being stuck is coming out. So the meatloaf must have come out of his throat. Thanks for saving my life. Now he can breathe again. And so he was able to do that with all of the words that I had planted in the story.
What about your own behavior? What did you see or notice about yourself while you gave this lesson to Noah yesterday?
Well, what I tried to do is sort of let him go and try not to say, okay, Noah, what does that mean? Use your prefix, and try not to like prompt him every every second to, you know, I kind of wanted him to read it. I didn't try and like stop him, like, okay, stop reading. There was a word. I kind of wanted him to read it to make meaning, but also to like stop when he saw a word that had one of the prefixes. And I just tried not to be so much on top of him. To let him kind of like
take over,
yeah,
to learn. And I saw at one point, might have been your teachable moment, you had him highlight. What was the point of highlighting the words?
Well, because I wanted him to focus on that word and on the prefix. And that was something we talked about in our pre-conference. I wasn't sure if I was going to use the highlighter. And when he found the word and he was looking and trying to think of what the prefix meant, I was like, you know what, let's grab the highlighter and highlight that prefix so that it stands out and he really can think about, that's where his attention is going, to that prefix.
So do you feel like what you planned met with what you did yesterday?
Overall, I think I did stick with my plan. I think the highlighting was
the only change?
Pretty much the only change. Yeah, and I did have him at the end, he did talk about why knowing the prefixes the day before was useful, because obviously when he comes across a new word that he doesn't know, if it has one of those prefixes, he can use that. Plus, we had done lessons on inferring word meanings, so knowing that prefix is a solid clue. With the context clues, he can probably figure out words that he doesn't know.
So overall, how do you think your student did to achieve your goals for your lesson?
How do I think he did? I think he did great, because he was able to do everything that I asked, and it was a nice, I think it was nice because it was a short story, it was brief and to the point. It didn't I wasn't asking him to read like this long article or this this huge chapter. It was short, and I had planted some words and I did use some words that I was pretty sure he knew, like reheated, like I'm pretty sure he knew what reheated meant, but I wanted to include some words at least that we didn't use in our sort yesterday. So we hadn't previously discussed it, and even if it's a word he does know the meaning of, I wanted him to explain the meaning in relation to having that prefix. So
very good. Yesterday you had asked me to look at the wait time of his responses when he asked him questions, and also to see how long you waited, or if you went too quickly into your next question. So what I did for my data tool was pretty much a T-chart, and it was the questions that you asked for your word work, and on the other side of the T-chart was the wait time for Noah. And the Q represents for a quick response, and also if he got that response correct, if he responded correctly. So have you take a look at it. These were all the questions that you had asked Noah, and throughout the lesson, well, most of the duration of the lesson, he had quick responses, and they were correct.
Or acceptable.
Or acceptable,
right? Yeah.
I should say. Yes, and in the beginning he only had a 2-second wait time. Everything else was just even less than a second, so that's why it has a cue. That's very quickly he responded.
Oh, and that was the longer one was, what is it called?
What is it called?
The prefix. He didn't remember the prefix.
Exactly.
So I had to prompt him and recall that we talked about prefix. Kind of sounds like preview. It comes before a movie, and that's how I think I got him to come up with
And
that.
I'm going to get to that part in a minute, because there was just 2 times, and I think we had talked about cautiously. You said yesterday, I cautiously think about giving him that wait time and not asking a question right away. It would be beneficial for Noah, and it was. There was just 2 times, and I really don't think it was where you cut him off too quick. You were just explaining in a different way quickly for him. And that was when you said, what do you think this word means? He started to respond, but then, and I actually don't really like that word cuts, because I don't want to say cuts. I would rather change that to, you just prompted me even more quickly to more explanation before he answered it. Because you wanted to make sure he answered it acceptably or correctly, and he did. He was on that version, he did. Then he
But
went,
that's the type of thing that I do. Like, if they don't answer right away, I do
Then
that. I try and rephrase quickly that I'm thinking it's a problem with my question, and not just like giving him the time to answer.
And that happened twice in your lesson. Twice only, Michelle.
Okay.
So when you look at the data tool, you can see out of so many questions, I'll write down how many questions was asked. There was a lot of questions asked. There was more than 10 questions asked. And 2 times, yes, that did happen, but we'll look at those type of questions that were asked, and then you can see, okay, this is why I should not have gone to him, ask him another question right away, because you know that about yourself. But I would be more concerned if there was a lot more times that you did that. Twice it happened, now you know, okay, well, you're improving your wait time and question response. That's something to be happy about. And the other wait time that he did at the end was when the interesting questions came in, that he had used background knowledge, and you gave him that wait time. He had 6 seconds of wait time. What do you think about it? He was using the background knowledge and his clues and what he knew, and then he responded correctly. And you did not try to explain a different way. You consciously thought about that. And that was a long time to wait. So that was good. Was an abdomen. 30-second wait time. So he's thinking about his dad being a doctor and then putting it together with his context clues. So that was really good. Then at the end again, we're still using our context clues, 5 seconds correct response. And at the whole thing about the dislodging, there was no wait time for the student to start to explain, but you guys were having a conversation, so I just wanted to make that point, and then he said it. So you guys were discussing that. So at that point, you weren't rushing him, you weren't thinking of another question, you were having a discussion. So really, the only time that there wasn't maybe enough wait time was minimal 1 question. And what I have to say this, what I really liked about your lesson, I thought was really good, was the authentic text that you used. That you actually sat down and you wrote a little story. I enjoyed that very much. Noah was engaged and enjoyed it. And that is something that usually we're looking for resources. Like, I don't have time to write authentic stories. So I was really impressed with that, Michelle. I mean, I know that you've been teaching for 2 years, but that was, when I was beginning, I'm like, that's great. And you think that's nothing. But when I read that story and I saw the lesson and saw that he met the objective, that was really good.
Yeah. And it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, because
Really?
what I actually, like, I was Googling, you know, like, words with prefix dis, or whatever, and I was looking through the words, trying to find, like, one word that, like, I thought you might not know, and I came across actually dislodged, and then that got me started. I was like, what if somebody's, like, choking? And then it just went, and then I, like, started planning out the story, and I actually, that's when I started looking at all the other words and just throwing them in. And I actually, out of the camera, and then I asked him, I said, what did you think of my story?
You're like, don't laugh.
I said, don't laugh. What did you think of my story? And he was like, I could tell you wrote it. And I was like, oh, really?
Kids are serious. They're just honest.
And he was like, well, it says Mrs. Taylor at the top. And I was like, oh, well, if it didn't say my name.
Then what would you think?
No, and he said, he's like, well, I could tell because it just had, like, normally you don't find that many prefixes when you read.
But
he
was
say
engaged.
It was good.
It was a structured lesson. It was authentic text. What we were looking for to help you. 2 instances, and one was explained, and one was that you noticed, oh, this is why I did it. But every other question here was answered in quick response and given sufficient wait time for Noah. So that in itself, I think it's good. I think you're catching on to your wait time. You're consciously thinking about it now. So you are growing in this. So this tool right here just shows you right now that you're progressing in it. So, as we continue, to work together in whatever you're looking for as far as help, then we could think about maybe something like what I'm having trouble with my open and close. We could go back and forth with that. But anything else that you see that you have to work on in the future, you think? Because I know we're always bettering ourselves as teachers, but you're on your way to giving enough wait time and knowing how to get the great responses from your students.
I think definitely the one thing that I have to work on, especially when I have, well, it's more with this tutoring situation than it is like in the classroom, because everything's pretty structured that way.
Yeah.
But with this tutoring thing, one of the other challenges for me, and if we had another coaching round, it would probably be like making the connection between the word study and the reading. Like, because this one I had to create my own thing, and sometimes I feel that the word sort or whatever I'm doing, even though it has a couple words from the story, it's not really like connected enough. I'm trying to work on these identified spelling patterns that he needs help with, but I'm trying to use something connected to the text, and sometimes I feel like it's a little disconnected. So that would be something like I'm trying to make sure that even if I have to create it myself, that like there is like a connection.
And through this lesson, you learn more about yourself and know or learn, which is the most important thing. So overall, I think it was very well executed. So,
and I think
job.
that the tool is very helpful for me to
Oh,
see.
good. I'm glad.
As
I'm
well.
glad.
So thank you.
You're welcome, Michelle. No problem. Turn this off.